Ho ho ho, scaredy cats, it's me, Santa Matt. Now that summer is over forever, it's time to turn our eye to that festive spirit. It's not summer anymore because there are no more Phantasm movies to review. So how could it be? How could it be summer without Phantasm movies? That doesn't make sense. It's also not Halloween. Therefore, by process of elimination, it must be Christmas time. There is no other logical explanation. Please do not question me further on the subject. And since it is logically Christmas, I'll be reviewing the 1974 proto-slasher Black Christmas. That's why I'm dressed like this, wearing a sweater, in this unseasonably warm Christmas season. It's 30 degrees Celsius outside. No snow whatsoever. I guess that's climate change, because I'm certain that it's Christmas. Last year, I made a video about evil Santas where I described Black Christmas as a movie with an evil Santa in it. I actually made a running joke in that video about saying Black Christmas 3 times because it has 2 remakes.
There is no evil Santa Claus in any of these movies.
And much fun was made of me in the comments. Oh ho ho, Matt! You think you're the world's greatest horror expert? Like you keep saying you are? And you haven't even seen this foundational slasher? You're a fraud! And we must drive you from the community and burn you alive. I'm paraphrasing, but that was about the gist of it. And I'm very sorry. I can fix this. I don't like Christmas movies very much. I've watched like the same 3 Christmas movies since I was a kid. I don't need more. I'm good. I also kind of assumed that this movie would be boring because most early slashers are, do not, at me. The Black Christmas was working an uphill battle with me. And folks, I gotta tell you, it was a great time. It was a fun little movie. The story follows a sorority house shortly before Christmas, where a mysterious killer is picking off the women within and making obscene phone calls to the women within the house. It's a play on that old urban legend about the babysitter who keeps getting threatening phone calls, and then she gets a call from the police saying, "We traced the call. It's coming from inside the house." And based on that hokey description, you'd think that this was a sleazy exploitation movie with tons of nudity, forgettable characters, and well, let's face it, a contempt for women. Slashers in general have a reputation as being pretty misogynist. A well-earned reputation, mind you, so one might expect a slasher set in a sorority house to be especially bad in this regard. But watching it, it kind of struck me how this movie defied a lot of the cliches that the genre would become known for. There's no nudity in it, for one, and nor are the women within it substanceless sex objects. The one girl who is stated to be a virgin is the first one to die, and the only one to die for like half the movie, for that matter. The final girl in this movie isn't the pure virgin ingenue that later slashers would use to lazily conform to outdated stereotypes. She's an unwed pregnant woman who's staunchly committed to having an abortion so that she can pursue her own dreams and career. Her boyfriend becomes furious, possessive, and violent with her upon hearing this. It's so fucking hot. She sheepishly withholds this information from other characters out of fear that they'll judge her or try to talk her out of it. At no point in the movie is anyone who is against her decision portrayed in a positive light. That's a more progressive story than you'd see in a movie today. No studio would put that story in a movie today. And it's not the only one either. There's a whole subplot about how the women in the sorority house can't get the police to take their reports seriously. The male police officers, who always refer to one another as our men or a man or that kind of stuff, write them off as overreacting or their problems as unimportant, until male characters chastise them for it, at which point they're suddenly willing to cooperate. Their unwillingness to take the obscene phone calls the house is getting seriously directly jams up the case and makes the killer more difficult to stop. The film waves a middle finger at men's attempt to control women's sexuality many times, most notably when one of the murdered girl's fathers shows up and thinks she's gone missing. He makes constant statements of disapproval of the sorority house she's living in, and reacts as though he'd rather have his daughter dead than off with a boy somewhere.
I don't know if it's any consolation, but 90% of the time girls are reported missing from the college. They're at a cabin somewhere with a boyfriend.
Thanks. But that's not much consolation.
All of the women in this movie react with contempt to his attitude, and they're presented as flawed people, but ultimately right in this matter. All the characters in this movie are super likable, which shouldn't be surprising given the notable character actors among the cast. Second City alum Andrea Martin, Lois Lane herself, Margot Kidder, and noted Nancy dad, John Saxon are all highlights. Each of their characters is well established, well motivated, and very human. Not surprisingly though, Margot Kidder's character is the standout. I may be a little bit biased here since Margot Kidder is the co-lead in my favorite movie of all time, but she brings a lot of pathos to Barb, the foul-mouthed and abrasive kid with a bad home life. She walks the fine line between being outwardly mean-spirited but still likable that Kidder does so well. She steals the show every time she's on screen.
I think the little bugger schnockered, son of a bitch.
Yeah, goodbye, dear.
You are.
The house mother, Mrs. Mack, portrayed by Marion Waldman, is another standout. Her alcoholism is played for laughs, which is kind of yucky, but she's fantastically realized. A warm but grouchy old sass who has no time for anyone else's bullshit, but plenty of time for her cat's bullshit. She spends most of the movie looking for her cat, Claude, who's a little cutie. I hate seeing cats in the first act of a horror movie because it's always a countdown until that cat is killed, but I'm pleased to report that the cat does not die in this movie. The killer in this movie is genuinely frightening in a way that few slasher villains are, constantly skulking the shadows, playing with the bodies of his victims, speaking only in incomprehensible gibberish and phrases that he's heard within the house.
Agnes, don't you tell what we did, Agnes.
The phone calls he delivers to the house are genuinely upsetting, not just because many of them threaten sexual violence that the movie thankfully does not depict, but because they're just so feverishly unhinged. The killer's motives are never explained. He seems to be living out some family drama from his past by arranging the bodies of his victims into a tableau of some kind, but that's mostly speculation on my part. It's really hard to tell. The movie sets a tone wonderfully. It feels so mundane, like it could be happening right in your backyard. Though I might be reading into that a little bit because the movie was filmed and seems to take place in Toronto, where I live. But at the same time, it's this moody gothic nightmare, a quiet foreboding that never lets up, that never lets you feel like the characters are out of danger. Characters are shot with elements in the foreground framing them, making them look caged as though there's no escape, and the killer is just around the corner, watching them, waiting. Long story short, if you've been putting this movie off like I have, it's time to give it a shot this holiday season, which is now. Which is why I'm dressed in these very normal, very comfortable clothes, very seasonable clothes, which is why I'm not sweating my brains out right now because it's Christmas and these are normal clothes to wear. That's all for Black Christmas. Next week, we're going to move on and discuss Black Christmas. The week after that, of course, we'll pivot to Black Christmas, and then Christmas will mercifully be over. I hope you have a joyous and wonderful holiday season. Now I gotta take off this fucking outfit because I'm gonna sweat to death. I'm going to sweat to death and die, and it will be your fault for watching this video. So hit the like button if you want to make it all worth it. If you want to make me dying of dehydration, alone, unloved, worth it. This was a bad choice. I don't know why I did this.